Today we're going to be working on the difference quotient practice. We're just going to be doing the odd numbered problems just to get you started, and then you can go ahead and try out the even ones. And you'll see that on the back, the answer to the odd problems are as such. So if you wanted to pause the video and do the odd ones first, then go ahead. All right. So let's take a look. We are given your function with the equation, and we are asked to find the following. Now, what they have done is they have just broken up the difference quotient, which is seen here, into parts. So the first part we're going to evaluate when we have f of x plus h. So what that means is typically we have f of x is equal to 4x squared, except this time around, let me rewrite that for one moment. Right, this time around though, instead of just having x, we are going to evaluate when x is equal to x plus h. So we get to stick that in here, and anytime where we had an x variable, much like we would do if we were evaluating 0 or 1 or 2, any sort of numerical value, we just stick it into your x here and then evaluate it at a specific number. Now, instead, we're going to evaluate it at this binomial. So we have x plus h here. And you'll notice that this whole thing is being squared, just like it used to be in this equation. So we can go ahead and evaluate. Now, because it's a binomial and it's squared, we're going to expand this out to show that we have 2 of them. And then we're going to go ahead and FOIL. So we have x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. And then we can go ahead and distribute in. So we have 4x squared plus 8xh plus 4h squared. So this whole thing here, f of x plus h, is going to be what we're going to be doing for your next part. So now it's asking us to take what we just had right here, which I'm going to unhighlight for a moment. And I'm going to stick it right over here. So we have x plus h, this whole thing, minus f of x. Well, we said f of x is really this portion here. So 4x squared. Now we distribute your negative. So we get, again, the same thing. And then we have minus 4x squared. Now, in this case, when we go to evaluate, you'll notice that we can actually start to cancel. So once you distribute in, items should cancel. So we get 8xh plus 4h squared. Now, I would recommend at this point in time to start to factor out, trying to simplify it as much as possible. So you'll notice that 4 and 8, they both have a 4 in common, and they also have an h in common. So your leftovers are 8. The leftovers of your first term are 2x plus a singular h. Because you're left with 2 and 4, you have 1, that, 4 and 1. Then you have 2 h's here. So all we did when it came to some factoring is we took out 1 h from each and 1 4 from each. So then what's left is to then put it into the difference quotient. So this whole top piece here is now going to be this piece right here, and it's fully factored form. Let me scoot that down just a little bit here. So this whole thing is going to be that top portion. So this piece here is really this whole piece. And you'll notice that this whole thing is divided by h. Then again, we're going to cancel out your h's because that's what they had in common. And you're left with 4 on the outside, 2x plus h. So let's try it again with number 3. So once more, we're now being told we have f of x plus h is equal to 9 minus 1/2 and we have x squared, where we then get to say, okay, we really have x plus h in where the x used to be. So x is equal to x plus h. So we're just working it into this x here. So we're going to, just like last time, expand. And distribute. And when you distribute, you're going to take this whole negative 1/2, and that's going to go to all of your terms. So minus xh minus 1/2 h squared. The 2 here, along with the 1/2, they will cancel with your fraction. And let's rewrite this: negative 1/2 x squared minus xh minus 1/2 h squared, and then plus 9 on the end. That way it's in descended order. So this right here is going to be part of your, what we're going to be starting with on your last one. So we have this whole thing as being x plus h, and we're then going to subtract, we'll put it in two parentheses, and we're going to subtract f of x being 9 minus 1/2 x squared. Distributing your negative, we're left with negative 1/2 minus xh minus 1/2 h squared minus 9 plus 1/2 x squared. And again, this is the part where things should start to cancel. You'll notice that the 9s are going to cancel and the x squared is going to cancel. So you're left with negative xh minus 1/2 h squared. Now start to factor. So what do these have in common? Well, they both have a negative in common, and they both have an h in common. So our leftover bit is x plus 1/2 and h. So this is going to be your numerator on your next portion. So we'll copy that over. So this whole thing here is really this portion here. And we definitely want to get into the factoring mindset because we want to make our lives easier for the future us. And you'll notice that we divide by h here. So we're left with negative x plus 1/2 h. I think in your answer key, they don't have it in its fully factored form. I would highly suggest that we fully factor it because that is going to be the better of the two answers. Now, I do notice that I haven't been answering the follow-up question to it. So I'll go back. It says, if you let h equal to 0, what would you get from part C? So part C, we had 4 to x plus h. So if we let h equal 0, well, we're just going to replace this h with a 0. So we're left with 4 times 2x plus 0 to then be just 4 times 2x, or just 8x. And if we did it again here, again, what would we get if we let h equal 0? Well, if h is equal to 0, we're then going to just substitute this h in to get negative x plus 1/2 times 0 to then just get negative x. Now let's try it one more time for number 5. So we have something a little bit bigger. And notice that this time it doesn't have us break it into parts. And that happens on 4, 5, and 6. But we can do the same exact thing that we've been doing from this first page. We can start to evaluate your f of x plus h, subtract it from your just f of x, and then divide by h. So just because the question doesn't prompt for it, doesn't mean we have to work it any differently. So we can say, okay, well, f of x plus h, first, we're just going to rewrite your expression, minus 4x plus 3. And again, this used to be an x, and now we're going to substitute your x plus h in. And the same steps are as follows. So we're still expanding here. You'll notice it gets very repetitive. This one has an extra step because then you still need to distribute into your next term. To get negative 4x minus 4h plus 3. Keep expanding. And lastly, we get 2x squared plus 4xh plus 2h squared minus 4x minus 4h plus 3. So this whole thing is going to be a part of your numerator. So we'll copy that. So say this portion here is really this portion here. You'll notice that I used F instead of C. If we want to keep it with our equation, we certainly can. So that's your first part. And then from your second part, we're just going to say we're going to take this whole thing now. We're going to subtract out C, your C being 2x squared minus 4x plus 3. You'll notice that the better your handwriting is, the easier it is to kind of see. So if you do have messy handwriting, or if you think like if your work is all over the page, it might be really hard to track. So as best you can, clean up your work, try and write into parts, or at least kind of show arrows for where you're going. And this is the part where we can start to cancel. Now, if you're noticing that nothing cancels, then we should be tipped off that something is wrong. So we should have your 3's cancel, your x squared term cancels, and your x term cancels. So you're left with 4xh plus 2h squared minus 4h. And again, this is the part where you would likely factor. So factoring out, they all have a 2 in common, and they all have an h in common. So you're left with 2x plus h minus a 2. And to check your work as well, you can always distribute in and see if you get the right answer from before. All right, so I've copied that. Now in your next part, just kind of following along with just the style of this worksheet. They broke it up into 3 parts, so I'm going to break it up into 3 parts. So we have 2h, 2x plus h minus 2 all over h. And they canceled out your h's. So your final answer should be 2 times 2x plus h minus 2. Or if they factored it back in, that's okay. This is just the better of the 2 answers because, again, simplifying, we want to make sure is as it's setting us up for future us to have a little bit easier of a time with work. So it says, if you let h equal 0, what does your answer become? So if h is equal to 0, so h is equal to 0, we can then plug in h. We get 2x plus 0 minus 2 to be 2 times 2x minus 2. And distributing, we should get 4x minus 4 here. So that would be our final answer. Now try it out with numbers 4, 6, and 2, and just kind of repeating that same process of distributing in your x plus h. You'll notice here if there's any sort of square or cubed, you then have to expand, then subtract that from your original, and then factor, and then divide. So you'll notice that those processes are the same.